When you think of Japan today, what comes to mind? Probably things like cutting-edge technology, amazing culture, a country that's completely connected to the rest of the world. But here's the thing, it wasn't always like that, not even close. For centuries, Japan was one of the most isolated places on Earth. So how did that incredible change happen? Well, let's get into it.
I mean, just look at this contrast. It's like two different planets. On one side, you've got the Japan of the shoguns and samurai, totally sealed off for more than 200 years. And on the other, the Japan we know, a bustling, global, technological powerhouse.
And that really brings us to the core question of this whole story. How on earth does a country go from total isolation to being so deeply integrated with the world? And in what is, historically speaking, a pretty short amount of time? The answer, believe it or not, starts way before those walls ever went up.
To really get modern Japan, you first have to understand who was calling the shots. And for a huge chunk of its history, it actually wasn't the emperor. Now, the emperor was a deeply revered figure, but his power was mostly symbolic. The real power, the person really running the country, was a military dictator, the shogun.
So this timeline kind of breaks down how that huge power shift happened. For hundreds of years, the emperor's court in Kyoto got really focused on art, poetry, and internal politics, not so much on, governing. This created a massive power vacuum. And who stepped in to fill it? The country's warrior class, the samurai. Eventually, after a huge civil war, one clan came out on top, the Minamoto clan. Their leader was given the title of shogun, and boom, that was the beginning of almost 700 years of military rule. All right, so with this powerful military government firmly in charge, Japan is about to enter one of the most unique periods in its entire history. It's all defined by one incredibly dramatic decision, to just slam the door shut on the rest of the world.
But what would make them do something so drastic? Well, it all kicks off in 1543. A Portuguese ship gets blown off course and bam! For the very first time, Europeans land in Japan. This one little accident would trigger a massive chain reaction.
And what's really fascinating is how fast things started to change. The Portuguese brought two things that were complete game changers: firearms, which just turned samurai warfare on its head, and Christianity, which started gaining converts and challenging local traditions. Now, at the same time, Japan had just come out of a brutal, century-long civil war. It was finally united under the new Tokugawa Shogunate, and its leaders looked at all this foreign influence and thought, whoa, this is a huge threat to the stability we just managed to create.
So, what was their response? It was extreme. In 1639, they put a policy in place called Sakoku. It literally means closed country. Under these new laws, pretty much all foreigners were kicked out. And if you were Japanese and you left the country, you were forbidden from ever coming back. Ever. On pain of death. For over 2 centuries, Japan basically went into a self-imposed lockdown.
But, no wall can last forever. And the isolation that had defined Japan for generations was about to get a very loud, very unexpected wake-up call.
Think about it. For over 200 years, this was just how things were. And then one single year comes along and changes everything. 1853.
This is the year the outside world didn't just come knocking, it kicked the door down. A fleet of massive steam-powered American warships sailed right into what we now call Tokyo Bay. The Japanese called them the Black Ships, and their commander, Commodore Matthew Perry, had a message from the U.S. president that wasn't so much a request as it was a demand. I mean, let's be real. The samurai were masters of the sword and bow. They stood absolutely no chance against modern cannons and steam-powered ships. The shogunate knew it. They had no real choice in the matter. They were forced to sign treaties that opened the country up to foreign trade, and for the government, this was a massive public humiliation. It would be the beginning of the end for the shogun's rule.
So that forced opening, it lit a fuse. It triggered a full-blown revolution. The old world was about to be completely swept away, and in its place, a new Japan would rise, one that was absolutely determined to catch up to the West at a truly breathtaking speed. The shogun looked weak for giving in to the Americans, and that weakness sparked a civil war. Powerful clans who'd been rivals of the government saw their chance. They rallied around the young Emperor Meiji, and by 1868, they had overthrown the shogunate. Just like that, after almost 700 years, the emperor was back in charge. What happened next is honestly one of the most radical national makeovers in all of history. The new Meiji government had a blueprint, and they executed it with incredible speed. They got rid of the entire feudal system, even dismantling the samurai class. They hired hundreds of foreign experts, built railroads and telegraphs, created a national public school system, and built a brand new, modern army with Western tech. It was a top-to-bottom re-engineering of an entire society.
And the results of this lightning-fast modernization were, well, stunning. Japan saw that the Western powers had empires, so it decided it needed one too. And to the shock of the world, in 1895, it defeated its massive neighbor, China. Then, in 1905, it did something nobody thought possible. It became the first Asian nation in modern history to defeat a major European power, Russia.
But this rapid rise to power put Japan on a dangerous path of militarism and expansion, one that would lead to the absolute catastrophe of World War II. But from the ashes of that very conflict, a completely new Japan was about to be born.
This timeline really shows that turbulent journey. In the 1930s, the military gained more and more control over the government, pushing to expand Japan's empire across Asia. This road led directly to the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. That, of course, brought the U.S. into a devastating war that ended with Japan's surrender in 1945. But here's the crucial part. What happened next? During the post-war occupation, Japan made a fundamental choice. It pivoted, away from military might and towards all-out economic development.
And what followed that pivot was, well, it was nothing short of a miracle. The world just watched in awe as Japan, a nation completely flattened by war, started to rebuild at a speed that seemed almost impossible. To really get a sense of the scale here, just look at this chart. By 1955, that's only 10 years after the war ended. Japan's economy had already blown past its pre-war peak. And then, look at this incredible leap. By 1968, it was the second largest capitalist economy on the entire planet, right behind the United States. The speed of that recovery is just mind-blowing.
So how did they pull it off? Essentially, they took all of that intense national focus and discipline that had built their military and just aimed it squarely at the economy. They focused on manufacturing things to sell to the world, becoming absolute leaders in cars and electronics. And in the process, they forged a whole new national identity, one that wasn't based on military conquest, but on quality, innovation, and economic strength.
When you step back and look at it, this whole journey, from a sealed-off kingdom to a global powerhouse, is one of the most remarkable stories in modern history. It shows us a nation that has this incredible ability to completely reinvent itself. And that, of course, leaves us with one last, really fascinating question. After all of that, what comes next?